Hello there, this is Rajeshwari Ramani. Welcome to an Asian Agribiz podcast, bringing you interviews and update from the animal protein community throughout Asia from a trusted and dedicated provider of news, information, and market intelligence. In this podcast, my colleague Payungsak Viryabunditkul is speaking with Gordon Butland about technology trends in the meat industry. Gordon is the director of GNS Agri Consultants, and he has been a frequent speaker at Asian Agribusiness conferences.
Hello, Mr. Gordon. Thank you for giving an interview in this podcast.
Wadikap Payonsak, and I'm very happy to be here again.
We have been living with COVID-19 for more than 2 years now, and it continues to exert pressure on the meat industry. So how the pandemic in the past 2 years changed the meat industry in Southeast Asia, and what are some of the major trends in meat processing now?
Now, I would say that is the meat industry as such is not changed. I think I would say we are learning to live with the problems. We are seeing already more indication that companies will use more automation. I have been told by equipment suppliers that there has been a significant increase in interest for example, automatic deboning and etc. The labor has not affected so much the actual killing of the birds, but it's the cut up which is the problem. That is where the main part of the labor is. So I would say that is the key issue, is shortage of labor.
Okay. Earlier you said that companies has expressed in an interest in automation. So how do you see the trend going forward, and what are some of the challenges when company adopting this, automation and other digital solutions?
Okay. Although the digital, I think it is one of the later questions, so I'd like to leave that when we deal with digitalization in general. But on pure automation, one of the problems for Thailand is that one of the reasons that Japan likes to or prefers to buy from Thailand rather than Brazil is because we have the manual cutting, which gives a better product. And most of the automation is coming on deboning and cutting of leg meat. So the worry is a little bit that the natural advantage that we had from hand cutting won't be, Brazil can get the same automated equipment that we can in Thailand. So that is a little bit of a worry. But in general, all this automation, and there is some fantastic automation available these days. There are plants in Europe which are totally automated. And the products that we can normally produce with automation, for me, are as good as manual, but that is not the way I think that necessarily the Japanese buyer will look at it. The first part of the meat processing, which is the slaughter and the evisceration. Most people today in Thailand have automatic evisceration, so that hasn't changed very much.
And what about digitalization, artificial intelligence, and other digital solution? Do you see more and more company will adopt
yes.
this?
Yes. So the technology has and will continue to advance rapidly. You've probably seen that Better Growers part with Huawei. Multinationals are investing heavily, as is CPF. I'm a little worried that the smaller companies, who are still quite big, are not moving fast enough because they don't have the in-house, shall we say, senior people who have experience and would be driving this process. The challenges for me are mainly educational. There's not enough professionals in the industry, and that means animal husbandry, veterinarians, engineers who have enough knowledge of data analysis to use all the data that can and probably is generated. However, the major Thai universities are addressing this issue, and I do feel that we will move very quickly. What we're seeing around the world is that the animal health product companies are investing heavily in this sector. And they're actively looking for startups around the world that address specific industry problems, especially disease issues. And I'm hoping that this will be a channel through these animal health product companies that will help the smaller companies that do not have the resources available in-house. And hopefully in the next year, we will see the smaller companies not fall too far behind, because the amount of technology available, components is amazing. I actually help a startup in Israel, and they are going very much into disease protection. There is a company in Germany that takes photograph of the manure from the chicken in real time, taken with a smartphone by the farmer, and comparing them with a database. This can actually say, okay, you've got such and such a disease, which has not appeared yet in the chicken, but it's telling you that you're going to have a problem, and so then you're given 2 or 3 days advance notice. This is, I would say that the beef industry is more advanced than we are in the poultry. In the beef, they have, again, the photographs of the cow, and they can detect mastitis, which is a big problem in the dairy industry, days before it actually appears. So the more and more applications are available. Give you, I don't know in Thailand, but in Brazil there are 900 startups, and the big companies besides the animal health products, but companies like Tyson, etc., they have a specific group of people completely separate from their day-to-day who are really looking around the world for startup companies that, as I say, address specific problems as they see it. But the hardware, shall we say, is in so far is in front of what I say the software, and software I mean people. So quite often you get the developers of the technology, they don't understand fully the chicken, and on our side we don't understand fully the technology. So both sides have to learn, especially the veterinarian, because the veterinarian is the interface with the farmer. When the farmer has a problem, the first person that he contacts is probably his vet. When a company, we want that the contract farmer does new things and innovations, we depend on the vet to convince the farmer and to help him learn how to use the new technology. So the veterinary profession has a very key function in this new livestock world, and we have to move quickly because the other countries are moving quickly. But I am confident that here in Thailand, our professions will also move very quickly.
You said that in terms of technology, the beef industry is more advanced than the poultry, right?
Well, it's easier. You see, both beef and chickens, beef and pigs, they are looked at one by one. you have 20, 30, 40,000 chickens in a chicken house. Bit difficult, but to give you some idea of the technology, you already have noise sounds. So if the chicken is hungry or thirsty, it makes one type of noise. If it's too hot, too cold, it makes a different kind of noise. If it's starting to get sick, it makes a different noise. So, and all this is obviously through artificial intelligence. So you're moving along to identify, even when you've got 20, 30,000 chickens in a house, you are starting to be able to identify that these chickens are having a problem, or they're going to have a problem. And as I said, with cattle and with pigs, they are more of that, because they've always looked at each individual animal, okay, especially on the pork side, where where the best pigs become sows. So you've had, for many, many decades, you've had the individual control of each pig, where it is impossible to do that with chicken.
Okay, let's move to another topic. How do you see opportunity in online and direct to consumer protein sale in Southeast Asia?
Well, or everywhere, online grocery sales in general have exploded. And when you are in your car on the street and you see the number of Grab and other companies with the motorcycles going everywhere and in any weather, that gives you an idea of how this online has exploded.
What about the meat sale, Mr. Gordon?
No, meat sales also. As long as you, then of course your only difficulty is that it's a bit more difficult to choose online. You don't actually, when you go to macro, you see exactly what you want, and this piece is better than that piece. So but as long as you know what you want, and I do quite a lot of online buy of my own today, then with companies with outlets like Tops and Villa Mart and all these major outlets, and even 7-Eleven, you can say exactly what you want, and within an hour you have it if you want it in such a quick time. So and I don't think the end of the pandemic will change that too much. I think we're all getting used to it. And when you take the cost of the delivery compared to your total bill, and you discount what it costs you for your gasoline and waiting and going to your supermarket and wasting time in the traffic, etc. I think a lot of this online purchasing is here to stay. It's certainly here to stay. We've seen that in other countries in the developed world, and I think that will be the same here. Although it is very interesting, one of my friends, he showed the other day a photograph of 100 years ago of a grocery company in the UK, with a guy delivering groceries on a bicycle, and the same chain today with a guy with a much better bicycle, but doing the same thing. So we're not inventing something completely new.
Okay. In terms of meat consumption, how do you see consumer adapt or change their behavior in the past 2 years, and how should meat company respond to the change?
I think one of the major changes is a worry of consumers in general about their health. This is like a consequence of the pandemic. The pandemic has brought up health issues, and also in some cases, the pandemic affects you to a greater extent if you have certain health issues. So I think people are looking at, what are the effects of your diet on health? There's no doubt about that. Poultry is seen to be the healthiest of animal proteins. There has been an acceleration in the movement towards plant-based. Okay, there are the cell-based, but we that's a little bit far away, especially because of the cost at the moment. But the plant-based, if you just go around the modern trade, the amount of shelf or cabinet space dedicated today to alternative proteins is significant, and they've all done a very good job on packaging. And I am slowly working through testing, shall we say. So every week I will get a different type of product, and some I find, especially when it is a mixed product, i.e. it's together with vegetables, or it's some English type of food, then I find it quite good. But when you look at, say, a pure chicken nugget from oat meat and a real chicken nugget, then I would always buy the real thing. So the challenge for the producers is to first have something which tastes, which means quite often it's the texture, as close as possible to the original, and that they must have the price point very close to the real meat. So it's taste and price, but the amount of new brands that you see is significant. But the big players, that's the Tysons, the Cargills, our own CPF, who have said that they want to be in the top tier globally in this sector. So as they get into it, and they are actively looking for startups in this area. That startup might be ingredients that go into oat meat, etc. So, but having said that, it's going faster, but I have not yet seen a change in people's thinking. When I say people like myself, that I see there's a limit of 10, 12% of the total animal protein space that will be taken up by vegetable protein, or even when we get farther along with the cell-based meat. So that overall 10 to 12, but we will probably reach it faster because of the pandemic.
And do you think the competition in the future will be more intense, right? Because meat company also venture in.
What I'm going to say now is very much my own personal point of view, is while this alternative competition, some people call it fake meat, when it doesn't really hit my own meat sales, okay. Now, if I am a meat producer and I am not in that section, once you start to hurt me, I'm going to fight back a bit. The oat meat industry is making a lot of claims, but I'm pushing back. You see, in the US, there's a regulation starting that you cannot call it meat. There's also, in my view, when we see what's happening in our own industry, that people want to know what the ingredients are, what's in it. And yet, if you look at the ingredients that are in an oat meat product, it's very extensive. And most of them, you've got no idea what's in it. So there will be pushback. Also, from an environmental point of view, we have a lot of pressure on the production side for environment emissions, carbon footprint, etc. But oat meat also has this, but it's not yet being pressured, shall we say, the same way as it. And once you get to a stage where this sector really starts to, I don't consider that it competes with with real meat. I look upon it that, okay, yeah, once a week, but I would not, and I don't think very many people would actually change their whole diet to go to this. So we're still at the beginning. It's still very, very in the initial stages.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Gordon, for your insightful analysis. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another Asian Agribiz podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever you get your podcast from. This is Raj signing off for Asian Agribiz.